Deleted session, April 25, 1971. Ram noted, session for Sue and Watkins. They said, "Now, good evening. This is your friendly marriage counselor, and you had better listen to me, both of you. Now, give me a moment. First of all, you have both been living in your own isolated universes, and this applies to my friend over here with the bare feet on the couch." Ram noted, Sue. Ram noted to Sue. They said, "Now, you have been projecting your fears about yourself outward, so that all of your husband's remarks were interpreted in that light. This aggravated some of his own original conceptions. Some of your interpretations were legitimate, based upon his attitudes, but many more were the innermost doubts that you have not faced as to who you were, and the deep questions involving the nature of your person as it is related to your particular sex in this life. You were aggressively aware of the difference between your own attitude and some of society's in that regard. But for the first time in your life, you were closely involved with another person, day by day, who to some extent then served as a moving picture onto which you projected these fears as to your own worth. Intellectually, you are certain enough of your worth as a person, but emotionally not nearly as certain as far as other abilities are concerned. You wanted support. You wanted confirmation of your hopes and of your faith in yourself, but because of your fears, these clouded the reality that you perceived. I am saying then that some of your interpretations of the relationship were based on what you would call factual reality, but part was also based on your own insecurity. I am not done with you yet, but I do not want him, Ram noted, Carol. They said, to feel left out over here. And while you are recovering, I will speak to him. For you were also in your own isolated universe. And if hers had fears in it, then yours was a valley of desolation in which your emotions were like unruly animals galloping around in there. And you were so frightened and worried about your own worth that you could not consider hers. And you were so insecure that her sensing insecurity, when you were aware of it, drove you to anger. You felt hardly strong enough to handle your own fears, and could not bear the thought that she might need your help also. Now, even in her position, she made efforts to get across to you, and bridges that could cross her own fear to you. But you were not able to meet her because you feared the cousin of despair within yourself. You did not see yourselves as people of integrity coming together in love, but as insecure individuals hoping that love could find the answer to fears that you were not willing to face otherwise. There were, shall I say, errors on both parts. Ram noted to Sue. They said, you tried to relate more strongly. Your fears did not hold you back with the unreasoning strength that his held him back. Now, I am going to take a break while my friend Rob reads back what I have said, and then I will return. There is hope for both of you yet, singly and/or together. You will have to face yourselves individually, no matter what you do, and you will have to do this before you can see each other with any clearness. Rob noted to Sue. They said, "Now, you have felt for a long time that you were between the devil and the deep blue sea, that you had a mind and a womb, and that somehow the two did not go together. Regardless of past life influences, which they exist, and granting some other interior reasons, you had a child to prove that you were a woman both to your mother and to yourself. Then, you thought, you could be quite free to use your mind and your other abilities, and no one could say a thing, because you could always say, 'Obviously, I have proven my womanhood, and I am free to use my mind.'" Rob noted to Carol. They said, "Now, this was a poor enough bargain for her to make, but for you to add to it in her mind, to demand that she prove this womanhood daily with the dishes or the housework or whatever, was too much for her to bear, and she felt doubly betrayed by you and by herself. She showed you early in the game, in unconscious terms, that she could be a woman with the trial. This was to let you know that she was whole and womanly, to settle that question for good. Then you would be free to accept her as a person. When it seemed that you did not do this, she was not willing to make more concessions, for she felt there were no more she could make. Many subsidiary issues fall into place there. The attempt at times to follow along the lines of sports, to cooperate, to hide the womanly nature of which you are basically ashamed. Rob noted the last phrase to Sue. They said, "Now, these attitudes have a false premise, and knowing the premise is false will give you much more freedom. With what you know now, you should realize that in each life you have different abilities. You may express yourself through a different sexual nature, and you should realize that both are necessary. The idea against which you rebel is a very temporary social premise that is already beginning to disappear. So you need not fight that battle all of your life." Sue asked, "I asked for solutions to this in a dream state, and got a lot of World War II stuff. Were these symbols?" They said, "You did have an existence then. You were using the word connection, however, as a symbol for battle between the sexes. Now, give me a moment." Rob noted to Carl. They said, "From your own parents, you also have some false premises having to do with sex. Now, you have been twice as upset over your own fears, because you are a man, and think that a man should be free of them. You also find yourself in a position where you believe you should be the entire support of your family, and where you know you have both been taking the easy way out, and you hate yourself for it. You were afraid that you could not make it alone, or support your family, if it really came down to it. Part of this is because you think that she will demand the sort of environment from which she came, which, quite secretly, appeals to you immensely, and yet for which, on the other hand, you have nothing but scorn. I will take this by gentle steps, and Ram noted to me, Seth said, that you raised your fingers. Ram noted to Carol. Seth said, now, many of your own personal problems have to do with two main issues. One is your environment, and the other is your physical experience for the last few years in particular. Say, since you went to college. You have not felt that you succeeded at anything. You have not felt that you manipulated well in physical reality, in the world as it is. And to some extent, you hated both the world and yourself for this. So you think that the world does not want you to succeed, and that the world or the establishment is out to get you. Instead, you are afraid that regardless of their opinion, you cannot succeed at all in the world as it is. Rob noted, half humorously. They said, your psychologist should have told you that. It is important. Part of this is a result of your relationship with your father. When you were very young, he frightened you. You felt him very powerful, aggressive, and unreasonably so in his behavior. It did not seem to you that you could become as strong as you felt him to be then. That whatever you did, you would fall short. Now, give us time here. There was a certain quality in him that held a sudden cruelty, of which you were frightened. Emotionally, you also went out to your mother, and unreasonably so in his behavior. It did not seem to you that you could become as strong as you felt him to be then. That whatever you did, you would fall short. Now, give us time here. There was a certain quality in him that held a sudden cruelty, of which you were frightened. Emotionally, you also went out to your mother, but you felt that she was dependent upon him, and weaker, and so to some extent, you were afraid of your own feelings toward her. Your own artistic abilities also brought up problems, since they seemed in your mind, unconsciously, more feminine than masculine. Your father cut out his own world, you felt, in his house and in the wilderness, comparatively speaking, but at the same time, because you feared him so, you did not really feel he wanted you to do the same, no matter what he said, because to prove yourself a better man would automatically destroy him. You have kept yourself from achieving for this reason, and some others. The affair with the woman represented a deeper betrayal to your wife, since it meant that of all things you not only did not accept her brain, but now her body also. Now, you have not come to grips with this deep despondency of your own, and you can do so. It is not nearly as deep or secret as you suppose, and there are some practical methods you can use to minimize its effects while you learn. Ram noted to Sue. They said, "This lack of confidence in himself has been picked up by you, and you accepted it. You should have been able to help fight it." Put down here that I smiled and added, "Ideally speaking." Being with your parents brought things to a head, because both of your attitudes were aggravated by the environment. You, Rob noted, Sue. They said, relating more as young girl in the family homestead, and he reacting as the stranger who came in the back door. Rob noted to me. They said, "Now, read that back." Rob noted to Carol. They said, "Now, you feel your emotions. You seldom reflect upon them. You know many of your attitudes. You seldom look for the reasons behind the attitudes. You accept your attitudes at their face value. You project your feelings upon the world and take it for granted that the world is what your feelings say it is. You accept your own attitudes toward yourself at their face value. They are attitudes of long standing. They were formed before you had any ability to reflect upon them, and now you have your relative dislike of reading, distrust of verbal expression. For example, you think of yourself as someone who tries to deal directly with the world through experience. You think that reading is second-hand experience. You think that. Now, many of these ideas come to you because of your attitude toward your father. You have not examined for 5 years, personally, your attitude toward yourself. You have simply accepted it as truth. In your inner journeys, you have traveled as far away from yourself as you could get, not as far inward as you could go. To some extent, because of this, you distrust your wife when she analyzes emotion, or when she says to you, "Why do you feel thus and thus away?" You do not want to know a good deal of the time. Now, a session for you earlier would not have had the impact of this one, or I would have given you such a session. Ram noted to both. They said, "Now, you know I will not say you should do thus and so, but the inner information I am giving you should be added to your knowledge as you assess the situation. Now, the challenges you both have can indeed be met within the framework of marriage, and can perhaps be best worked out in that fashion. They can also be worked out separately. If you decide to continue, the entire atmosphere must change. She must be encouraged to express her emotions and her abilities." Ram noted to Carol. They said, "You must learn to reflect upon your own emotional states, to ride the emotions like a rider upon a horse, rather than the way around, and to show gentleness, to reflect more upon your own attitudes. Your image is one that is very weak, and this you must change. For the image, again, is built upon false premises, and I will give each of you more specific particulars whenever you want them." Ram noted humorously. Seth said, "Now, I am not calling either of you down. I am not exactly giving you a medal either." Sue asked, "Where is sin in all of this?" Seth said, "The child can develop excellent abilities, and if your own relationship becomes a constructive one, then he will more than learn from your experience. You both have characteristics that are highly advantageous to him. Reincarnational material I will give you another time. He is of such a nature that I believe he will be quite safe regardless of what you do. Now, read that back. Now, you have had quite a bit for one night, but each of you can creatively use these problems and turn them to your advantage. And this is a learning process in which you are both involved. It is not always an easy matter of saying no, and I do see both of you handling your situations well. Do not feel helpless, and do not feel that you are failures. This is a point of time for you that in other ways has already passed, that you will look back upon. You are not caught in the moment. Request information, therefore, from your inner selves, and release your perceptions so that you clearly perceive the answers that you receive. You do have the abilities to solve these issues. Remind yourself, therefore, of that fact, and do not tell yourself that your situation in any case is a hopeless one. Now, would you have preferred not to be consciously aware of the information I gave you tonight? Sue said, "No." Carl said, "Alone, no." Seth said, "Then use it. Use it alone or together, but in any case, you must use it. You will use it, for you have far more strength than you realize that you have. You have only to draw upon it. I know that you have it, and I know also that you will use it. Now, I bid you both a fond good evening." Ralph nodded to Carl. Seth said, "Open your eyes. Within yourself, you will find more than despair. Carl, let yourself be flooded with inner realizations that are within you. They are your bridge, not only to yourself, but to your wife. Helplessness will not repair the situation.